we go. Much better. All right, checking out number one. We have a system because we have the same type of equation, same variables, and we're trying to find the common solutions. Now watch how easy this is. We just have to graph each one and see what's in common. That's all we have to do. We got a y-intercept of -1. We have a slope of -2/3. I'm going to go down 2/3, down 2/3. Okay, so what kind of line am I going to draw here? Is it going to be solid or dotted? What do you say? Yeah, it looks like it's less than or equal to. So I get a nice solid line here. What about my shading? This is an inequality. I have a little shading to do. Less than. Under the rooftop. Yeah, this is a rooftop right here. This is under the roof. So I'm going to shade, but I'm going to do it kind of lightly because this may not be my final answer. Okay? Pardon? I looked at my inequality. If y is by itself, you can just look at the less than and know that you shade under the rooftop. Right down underneath. See, if it were raining, this would be on top of the roof right here. This would be under the roof. Now, we only have to test when we don't have y by itself. So let's get to this second one. Help me out with it. This one has a different intercept, -8. And it goes up 1/2, up 1/2. So they do have a point in common, don't they? That's one part of our final solution to this system. They do have one point in common, but we don't have to list it because there's just so many solutions. Because their shading is going to overlap. They're going to have it in common. So Kelnaya, help me out with this one. Above the roof or under the roof for the second one? Yeah, it's a greater than. So now I see where they're going to overlap. They're not going to overlap down here because I'm above the black line. So my final answer is going to be heavy and dark now. This is where all the common solutions are. I can erase this other part if I want because it was not a common solution. So what do you think? I've got millions and millions of points in there. Well, I think we're done. We just found where their solutions kind of overlapped and we have common system solutions. Now, Chris was saying, don't we need to write down the common point on the lines? We don't need to because these weren't equations. If they were just equal sign equations, we'd have to write that down. But because there's so many other solutions, we just let the visual do the talk. Okay? Who's got a question? Anything at all? All right. Why don't we do one that's a little bit more work involved? Let's go to number 4. Okay. Now, I can't really get started with this right away. What is it about it that's keeping me from just going to town here? Yeah, it's not in an easily graphable form. I don't even think I could use intercepts because 7 times something equal to 18. I have some pretty ugly numbers to deal with. So I think with this one, I'm just going to get y by itself. Do you see what's going to happen in the second equation here when I get y by itself? I'm going to subtract 2x. I think I see a little flippy dippy coming on. Look what happened. that second equation, we've got to flip the inequality because we're dividing or multiplying by a negative. It works out kind of nicely though, doesn't it? It's not all bad. How about the top equation? Step 1, get y by itself somehow. What am I going to do? What do you think, Ben? Yeah, we'll take away 7x from both sides. And then we'll divide by 3. No flip required this time. But by the time I simplify it, I've got a less than or equal to, a negative slope, and I'm all set to go. So why don't you guys try this now? So let's see how this works out here. I've got a y-intercept at -3 with my black inequality here. I'm going up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3. And again, I have a solid line with this because I can be equal to, less than or equal to. Oh no, this is greater than or equal to. Woo! So when I draw my line, do my shading, the greater than means it's above the roof. So very lightly, we're going to shade that and try and find where things intersect. Okay, now the red one, we hit at 6. And then we have a slope of down 7 over 3. Down 7 over, oh, we intersect right there. Down 7 over 3. It's a solid line again. Ooh, did I goof? Don't tell me I goofed. Let me spot it. I got to see. Is that a less than or equal to? I think we're solid. That's a less than or equal to. They both started out or equal to. So I don't think I goofed. We want solid lines here. All right, with the red equation, where do I shade? Where do I shade? Can you help me a little? What's the inequality say right here? Emily, what's this inequality say, this red inequality? Let me blow it up a little. What does that say? Less than or equal. So I'm going to shade under the roof, so to speak. So are you seeing where the shading might overlap if I'm shading in here? It's going to overlap only over here. So these are our solutions in the darker shading. Make sure we know that that's the only final solution place. Yeah. So why wouldn't it be in the corner where the 2 points of the bottom right? That's an excellent question. Why isn't it in the corner? Well, let's see why. Above the black, okay, and below the red. So the only place where they intersect and cover the same area is right where we shaded the most. Some people like to draw arrows. I know that helps sometimes. They say, okay, we're above the black. That's up here. Okay, but we're also below the red, which is right here. And you can see that we just don't overlap down here or over here or over here. Good question, Chris. It can be a little tricky. All right, how are we doing so far? Give me some feedback. Is this as easy as I thought it was? I'm seeing the ups and the mid-levels. All right, why don't we do 6? Because it's got an equation that's a little out of the ordinary. Look at that bottom equation. It doesn't have slope-intercept form there. So how am I going to graph this? X is less than -1. Anybody help me? Logan, you got to help me. I'm dying here. Let's graph this as x equals -1 with a dotted line, right? It's going to be a dotted line. This doesn't have any obvious slope and intercept right now. So I'm going to graph it as a dotted line. X equals -1 is right here. Okay, now where am I going to shade? Where x's are less than -1. That's right here. Yeah. Okay. Now, don't shade it too dark because we got to make sure it overlaps the other. Now, I think we're going to have a little problem with the other. Look what happens with the other. When I start solving the other, I divide by a negative. That's going to be a big uh-oh because I'm going to have to flip, right? I had to flip the inequality when I divided both sides by a -5. So now I hit at 1 and I go up 4 over 5. And it again is a dotted line. So because of these dotted lines, I can't include any points that are on the dotted lines. Not even the point of intersection is going to work because it's going to make things like -5 is greater than -5. It's not really true because of the dotted lines. So where am I going to shade the black line? Well, it says less than. So that's under. Where will the unders overlap? Just in this bottom little triangle area right here. So I'm going to make that heavy and dark and make sure it's the only one that really looks like it's shaded heavy and dark. Okay, last problem of the day is on the next side. If you don't have a question, on the next side, flip it over. I think we should look at number 9 because they want us to graph this, but it worries me a little because the numbers are so ugly. So give it a read and give it some thought, and then we'll talk. Yeah, I think we have a clue. The big clue is that they want to know how many of each stamp we're going to use. How many? So that's going to be my variables. Let's see. I'll make X the number of 28-cent stamps I use. Y will be the number of 4-cent stamps that I use. So the nice thing about this system is that Chris has already got it done. Because one of the inequalities says you can't use any more than 20 4-cent stamps. Well, that's going to be nice. Look at how it is. If you can't use any more than 20, doesn't that mean that the Y count, the 4-cent stamp count, is 20 or less? Oh, that's going to be an easy one. Now, the one that's going to be a little more difficult is what he needs. He needs at least $1.60 in stamps. Oh, criminelli. So that now we need the value of these stamps. That's going to be 0.28 times the number of those stamps and 0.04 times the number of those stamps, and it has to be at least $1.60. That means greater than or equal to 1.60. Okay, now the reason it's greater than or equal to is it needs to be at least $1.60. So I think we need to try and graph this. I need some advice. Let's stop for a minute and think, how would I graph the second equation? I think when I try and graph this, I either have to get y by itself, or I have to find a way to make the equation easier to graph using my superpowers. So I'm going to grab a calculator and I'm just going to see, what the heck does this look like? If I divided 1.60 by 0.04, isn't that a ridiculously huge number? It is. The y-intercept is 4,000. I don't see any way I can graph a y-intercept of 4,000. No way. No way. So maybe I have to make this a little easier. Maybe I could divide everything by 0.04. See, if I divide everything by 0.04, look at how easy the equation gets. Oh. See, I divided everything by 0.04 because I know 4 goes into all these numbers. That makes it so much nicer. You know what I would probably do with this problem? I'd probably use Desmos to graph this problem. Okay? And then I would take a look at it. So let's do it. Use Desmos. So using Desmos here, let me grab it. Using Desmos, I can figure out the intercepts. One thing I need to do is decide where 20 is going to be. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. There's 20 right there. I'm going to graph that puppy. Y equals 20 looks like this. And I shade everything underneath. Okay, now the other one hits at 40. Oh my goodness. And it's going to come down through. Let's see. If that's 20, it hits at 40. It's going to intersect, according to Desmos, it's going to intersect at about 2.9, 20. 2.9, 20. That's right here. Okay, and that one's going to come all the way down, and that's a bit of a brute. What's the x-intercept? It's 40 divided by 7. So I click on the x-intercept, 40 divided by 7, and this is just a barrel of fun. It's 5.7, right about there. And so this line looks like this. And how do I shade it? Well, it's a greater than. So the final solutions are where the shadings overlap, and here they are, right here. Man, that was ugly. All right, I have a little homework for you. It's not bad. It's a lot nicer than that. I think you'll find it pretty easy. Here you go. I'll tell you what, you can cross out number 9 because I think the numbers are just too ugly. Cross out number 9 because I just don't like them at all.